Hey there. Today I wanted to talk about having more time, creating more time. We live in a world where everybody says they are busy, they don't have enough time, there's not enough hours in the day. These are things I hear from entrepreneurs all the time, but also stay-at-home moms or people who are just working jobs. This is all across the board, people saying that they don't have enough time. So I really wanted to just kind of get into this and how to have a different mindset so that we can actually create more time. So the first thing that I want to get into is that time is a limited resource. And we can think about it as like there's only so much time in the day, or there's only so much time that we have in our life. But we can also think about how we're spending that time. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is the trade-offs that we make with time. So when we are making choices, we have to understand that everything is a choice, how we spend our time. So if I want to spend my time watching Netflix, that is one choice of spending time. Okay, but there's other things that a lot of people will say, we have to spend our time this way, right? Like, so I have to take care of my kids. I have to go to work. I have to, right? And so we lose the sense of this choice. Like it's no longer a choice. Now, there's nothing wrong with the word have to. I feel like that's a word, another word for I'm committed to. And I feel like that's actually, if we could change have to committed to, you'd be a lot better off. So that's one just little hack if you want to do that. But just realizing that we don't have to do anything. Like we literally do not have to take care of our kids. We do not have to go to a job. We do not have to fill in the blank, right? Those are all options, right? And when we think that we have to, that it's outside of our control, we lose our autonomy over our time. Okay. So first off, just realize how you are choosing to spend your time and doing those things. And I know I'll hear a lot of people like, but I have to take care of my kids. No, you don't. People don't take care of their kids. I'm not saying that's the correct option, but when we look at those things and we say, this is the choice that I'm choosing to make, then we own it. So we're owning our choices and we're saying, this is something that's important to me, right? So like I said, instead of saying I have to, I'm committed to, right? Like I'm actually committed to taking care of my kids, picking them up, running them to games, whatever the thing is, or I am committed to going to a job, right? Why are you committed? And you can look at those reasons why, but I just want you to realize that those are all optional. You don't have to go to a job. People don't go to jobs. Sometimes they just stop showing up, right? That's a thing, right? There's plenty of people in the world who don't have a job, who don't pay rent, don't pay a mortgage, don't pay bills. It's a thing. Right? Are there consequences to both of these actions? Yes, there are. Positive, negative, I don't know. That's up to you to decide. But just realizing like this is a choice and I'm choosing this and I'm committed to it, that will just free up your mind in the first place about how you're spending your time. Okay. The second part of trade-offs when we're talking about time is we want to talk about saying yes and no to things. The reason that people feel they don't have enough time is because they're trying to shove too many things in a short amount of time, right? And that causes stress, causes a lot of overwhelm, causes all kinds of things, okay? So we have to do an audit, sorry if I can speak, of what we're saying yes and no to. And the way I like to do this is I look at my life and I say, okay, this is how I'm spending my time, right? So I'm cleaning, I'm working my job, I'm coaching people, I'm exercising, I'm making meals, right? All of these are the things that take the time of my day. I'm watching Netflix, I'm scrolling on Facebook, all of those things, right? And there's other things I might be volunteering or whatever the case is, right? And so we're looking at how do I spend my time? And am I choosing those things intentionally? And what are my reasons for choosing those things? So, right, like just going back to everything's a choice, right? I'm choosing to go take care of my kids. I'm choosing to make the meal. I'm choosing to exercise. When we realize that that's the choice that we're making, that can really help with understanding the trade-offs. So everything that we say yes to, we're saying no to something else. So if I say yes to my kids doing 3 different sports at the same time, or a sport and a musical instrument, right? Like every time I say yes to my child doing those things, I'm saying no to something else that may be for me. So I'm saying yes to, I'm driving them places, I'm doing those things. If I say yes to a client that I don't particularly want to work with, I'm potentially saying no to finding a client that's a better fit, right? If I say yes to exercise, then I'm saying no to, right, like whatever could fill that time period, okay? So we look at all the things that are filling our time and we say, okay, these are all the things that I'm saying yes to. And then we understand, we look at them and say, why? What are my reasons for saying yes to this thing? Okay. Not pros and cons. What are my reasons? The reasons I say yes to exercise is because I want to feel good, because I want to be strong. I want to take care of my body, right? So that's really important to me, even though exercise could be saying no to going to the donut shop, or not even going to, it could just literally be like me sitting at bed scrolling on my phone, right? So like we're saying there's a bajillion different options in the world. So, it's not like, oh, it's either this or that. We're saying, I'm saying yes to this, which means I'm saying no to the bajillion other options that there are. So when we're looking at the trade-offs, we say, okay, these things are really important to me. And I've seen this with people, they over volunteer and all these different things. So we look at the reasons. So if I'm volunteering for some reason, right? Am I volunteering because I love it and I want to be there? Or am I volunteering because I feel that I should, or I'm trying to people please? Like so-and-so came to me and said, oh, Ashley, I really need you to fill in for this thing. It would be such a great help, but it's going to take up my time. It's not something I'm particularly interested in. I don't, whatever. So we look at our reasons, and if it's like, oh, it's just to make so-and-so happy, do I like that reason? And that is not actually a bad reason. Like, just so we get here, a lot of times people are like, oh, people pleasing so bad. No, we do it all the time, right? So like if my husband says, will you come and do this thing, this volunteer thing, or help me work on the garage or whatever, I may say yes to that just to make him happy, because that makes me happy, right? So just look at those. Like, do I like my reasons for doing those things? Yes, I do. So, but you can also look at that and be like, no, I don't want to be here. And there's another thing a lot of times people talk about in coaching, besides just your reasons for doing that thing, is also like how you feel about doing the thing. So a lot of times people will say, it's either a hell yes or it's a no for me. And that can be really good, just determining like, this is a yes for me and this is a no for me. So all of these trade-offs help us to get down to like how we want to spend our time. So I was coaching somebody a while back and they were talking about their kids doing lots of different sports. And the husband was running one kid one place, the mom was running another kid the other place, right? And then they weren't having dinner together, and she was stressing and she felt like they were missing out on all these things. And so we talked about like looking at their schedule and deciding, hey, maybe we need to pare this down so we can have more time as a family. That was what was really important to her, right? And so we look at those things and say, what am I saying yes to? I'm saying yes to my son doing, I don't know what he's doing, wrestling, baseball, whatever the thing was, right? And you look at those things and you say, okay, it's really important to me that my son develop this skill, or is it really important to me that we have family time, dinner time together? And not one is wrong and one is right. There's not a right or wrong answer. You just get to choose how you're spending your time. And this will create the abundance of time that you want, right? And it depends on different people, right? A lot of times people will say, like, I love doing those things. That's great. I personally don't. I'm an introvert. I like to be home. So like I limit my kids and what they do so that we can be home together. That isn't right. It's not wrong. It's just the way that we run our lives. This is just the experience that we're having. And so it's good for us, right? But that's not necessarily good for other people. I know a lot of people who thrive and are extroverts and they love just going. And that's how they get their energy, right? So just realize not one right, not one wrong. You're just realizing like, I chose this and I'm choosing this today and I'm committing. I've already committed to this and I'm choosing this again. So if at some point in time, you're like, I really don't want to go do this, right? Like realize like, I don't have to, but I committed to this, or I am committed to this today, and I'm choosing to do this anyways, right? You don't actually have to show up for the PTA meeting, for the volunteer meeting, for the whatever the thing is. You don't actually have to show up. Just realize that you are choosing to for whatever your reasons are. Okay. So once you get that, right, we can like limit how many things we're putting into a day. So a lot of times, here's another case that people say, they're like trying to shove too much into at one time. So we just have to be more selective about what we're putting into our time. Okay. The other thing, when we say yes to something, we're voting. It's a vote of our time. So we're voting with our time. We're saying, this is who I am. This is how I want to spend my time. Right. So it's not bad. A lot of times people will say, oh, I spend too much time watching Netflix or whatever the case. That is not necessarily bad. You just realize and look at it and be like, is this how I want to spend my time? For me, it is. I enjoy watching movies. I enjoy doing those things. So like for anybody who's like, oh, I just, you get to decide. I'm okay with that for me. You may not be, and that's totally up to you. But the person who I am and the person who I want to be, they enjoy watching movies. And so that's something I include. And I know that that's part of the vote for who I am. Where I spend my time is a vote for who I want to be. Okay. The other part about not shoving too much in one period of time is I really want you to think about, why are you in such a rush to get things done? Why can't we just let things take longer? I actually coached a client on this. She was talking about like cleaning her house, doing all those kinds of things. And she's like, I could just never get it done in the day. There's not enough hours in the day. That's all these things I hear. I'm like, why does it have to be in one day? Why don't we spread out these things over longer periods of time? 2 days, 3 days, a week, right? Whatever the case is, whatever we're trying to accomplish in one day, if we cannot shove it in to one day, then we need to be okay with spreading it out over multiple days, weeks, months, years, however this looks. Okay. The reason we get in a rush is because we think that it's going to be better there than it is here. And I just want to tell you, it's not any better. It's just different. We have different problems. We have different thoughts. We have different things going on. Okay. The grass isn't always greener, right? So we always think like we just get new problems, things change for us. Okay. I'm not saying that life doesn't get better, but life is 50-50. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be all the in between, right? So just rethinking like, once I finally get my business and making $100,000 a year, life is going to be great. No, you're just going to have a different set of problems, but you're going to have more money, right? So it's not a matter of just rushing. So if we knew that your goal was inevitable, that it was going to happen. So we can apply this to something as small as having a clean home, or something as big as having $100,000 business or bigger, right? We set these arbitrary goals up when we say, okay, I want to make $100,000 in a year. And what if I told you it's actually going to take 2 years, 5 years, right? Why do we get in such a rush to make that goal? And I'm not saying that we don't have goals or that we extend them longer. I like to make goals like make $100,000 a year. And then I just tell myself, if I don't get there, like I'm aiming for that thing, but if it doesn't work, it's okay if it takes a whole nother year or a whole nother 5 years. No matter what, we're heading in the same direction. We're just not stressing about it. And the reason that this is so important is because when we stress and we put all this pressure on ourselves, we tend to quit. We tend to not enjoy it. We hate it. We want to get out. It becomes the bane of our existence, right? But when we allow ourselves luxurious time to complete these things, that is when we will enjoy the process, enjoy all of the, and so we continue to work on it. We lose the pressure, we lose all those things. Now, some people are going to say, well, I have to make this money. Money's a different thing, right? It's different than just having a clean house, right? Or you're trying to pay bills. And I can understand the stress of that. And we can look at that in other ways too. But I really want you to not rely, if you're growing a business, you cannot rely on a new business to support you. That's just not the way it works for the most people, right? Sometimes there is a fluke. I'm not going to lie. There's people who do things overnight. It doesn't happen most of the time. And what we think of as overnight is usually years in the making. So you have to allow this time for your business to grow. It's not, if anybody says something happens overnight, I would be skeptical of it being a scam, right? There's just not a whole lot of overnight success on things like that. It's years and years and years, and then something flips, and then people become pretty successful is usually how it goes. So we have to allow for this time, and that may mean having other jobs while we're building a business, right? If we put too much pressure on a business to perform in a short amount of time, we're either going to not do it, or we're going to like burn out real quick, right? Because we're like have all these expectations for what should be happening. So I really want you to like look at this and be like, why am I in a rush? If this business takes me 10 years, I don't know how long it will really take. Am I still all in on this? Am I willing to work at this other job, doing these other things, so that I can make this business successful, working, all those kinds of things? So we have to give those, right? We have to give ourselves some of that leeway in there. So don't be in such a rush. Maybe it's you want to lose weight, right? Say I want to lose 50 pounds, right? And we're like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in a year. Well, a lot of times what happens is people don't lose the weight right away. And so then they get frustrated and then they quit, right? But what if we said, well, you're not going to lose that 50. What if it's going to take you 2 years to lose 50 pounds? People will be like, oh, that's terrible. Why is it terrible? You're still losing weight and heading in that direction, because the other option is to just be overweight and not lose weight, right? Same with your business. What if it's going to take 5 years? The other option is to never start a business, right? So we look at these things and we're just look at the trajectory of them, and we say, is that the direction I want to be going? I'm all in if it takes 6 months, if it takes a year, if it takes 5 years, 10 years, whatever the thing is, I'm all in. And I'm not going to stress about the time that it takes, but I am going to set these goals. That way it can just give me like, I like to think of them as like mile markers, right? So I can see, and then that way I can evaluate how things are working. So if, like I said, if I set a goal to make $100,000 in 1 year in my business, I can look at that and I can say, okay, this isn't working, what's not working? And then we can evaluate. If we don't set those goals, same thing in weight, we tend to not do those, not hit those things. So it's just something to think about, right? Are you all in if it's going to take longer? Don't be in a rush, okay? And that will definitely help. Okay, now, lastly, the last thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to time. There are a lot of people who will say, in self-help, like you set a certain amount of time to do the thing, and then it'll get done in that certain amount of time. Now, that is true, but I'm going to give you a caveat to that as well. When we're talking about time, we also want to talk about when you're learning a new skill, you need to give yourself ample, luxurious time, right? So people who start businesses, often the people that I work with will say, why is this taking so long? What's wrong with me? Why am I not getting it yet? Okay, when we are learning a new skill, a new task, a new whatever, we have to give ourselves more time than we think is necessary, right? So just apply it to if I was going to learn how to bowl or do a sport, right? Like I don't go into this new sport thinking I'm going to get this right away. And if I do, I'm probably going to be, unless I'm very athletic for whatever reason, or I'm going to learn a new instrument, right? And I'm very musical. It's probably going to take me longer than I think that it's going to take, right? So we're going to apply this back into business, weight loss, whatever the thing is. Maybe it is learning a new instrument, right? Whatever this is, you look at this and you say, okay, I think I want to learn how to take photographs. I think it should take me, an hour to set up and take these photos. If you've never taken photos before, you need to give yourself more time. I say 3 times the amount of time that you think it's going to take. So if you're taking photos of a product that you have and you say, okay, I think it'll take me about an hour to do this. Give yourself 3 times that, because you are not going to know what you don't know. Give yourselves luxurious time. And if it takes longer than 3 hours, then you can know in the future, okay, it takes me 4 times longer. I'm going to plan 4 times the amount of time I think it should take. This may be spread out over days. This may be spread out over weeks. I don't know, but you get a look at that and just determine, like, I think it should take me about this long, an hour. So I'm going to give myself 3 hours. And the reason we do that is because we always are terrible in the beginning. You have to be willing to not be good at something in order to get good at it. So you give yourself a lot of time, right? Say, well, I'm going to use the idea of taking photos, right? Because in the beginning, you're going to be like, oh, I just have to take this photo. It'll be so quick. And then you have to learn how your camera works. You have to learn how the lighting works. You have to learn how to set up the background, right? And then you're like, oh, finally, like, you did all these things and you figured out something. And then you're like, okay, now I have to edit it. I think it'll only take me an hour to edit. And then you're totally wrong because you haven't edited before. And the first few times that you do this, it's going to take longer than you think it will. You're like, oh, I've already edited a photo before. The problem is you're going to get back and then you're going to forget things and you're going to have to relearn them. So give yourself ample time to learn something new. And then when we lose that expectation for it taking less time, then we will feel like we have more time, right? When we're not in a rush, we can enjoy the process, okay? And we lose that expectation, we lose that feeling of defeat, okay? That comes along with it. Now, the opposite is true. If you are good at something, what a lot of people tend to do is they'll give themselves more time than they need because they are perfectionists. So if you are good at taking photos, for example, right? And it should only take you, you're like, well, it takes me an hour. You can sometimes cut that time down to a half an hour, because what you're actually doing in those extra 30 minutes is you're tweaking, perfecting, like trying to make things perfect, and it's not worth it, right? It becomes a waste of time. So yes, if I say, okay, I can do this thing in 30 minutes, if I know how to do the thing in 30 minutes, that's how long it will take me, because I know how to do it and I don't have to give myself extra time to be a perfectionist about it. So you just realize, like, how much time am I wasting being a perfectionist, tweaking all those different things when I could just send something out into the world, or I could just whatever. You get to decide that. And I know some, quality work, you get to decide whatever your level of quality is. And that's totally up to you. I'm okay with not very high quality stuff. I just have been. Some people, they have a harder time with that. So they'll say C's to get degrees. Some people say B- work. Some people, it's totally up to you, your level of, whatever you want to call it, your level of production value, right? So for me, like, I do these, I don't edit them very much. Why? Because I don't like to. So I'm okay with that. It's not like professional quality. I feel like I'm getting out the message that I think is important. Okay, so that was a lot about time and having more time and creating more time. So hopefully there's something in there that you can take and apply to your lives. And one last thing I'm going to just say, if you're going around saying you're busy all the time, I want you to just watch that and be aware of it. If you feel busy and you're saying I'm busy, why do you feel that way? And start to edit your time and audit your time and look at those things and be like, oh, is this true? Is this just something that's coming from society that we say to each other? Because sometimes when we say those things, it becomes how we live our lives. So I don't say I'm busy very often, but just look at those things that could be really helpful and being like, oh, I have plenty of time. Yeah, I got plenty of time to set up this business. It's going to take me a year. I don't know, right? And you get to set those time markers for yourself, but really start to, I have plenty of time. I have plenty of time to do this. I have plenty of time to be with my family. Whatever's important to you, look at that time, make a vote for it with how you spend your time. And like I said, hopefully this helps. if you have any questions or if you want to work with me, definitely reach out to me. I do one-on-one coaching. I do a free call the very first time, so you can get to know like if this is a good fit and how we can work together. I can give you all the details and you can ask me any questions that you want to, and I would love to see you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.